but let me just give like a quick one-over-one overview of the sacrifice, and then we can dig into questions and go down some rabbit holes. Um, so for everyone who's, big RH fans, cover their ears. I'm going to say a couple words that we usually don't like, but for people who are outside of kind of our little ecosystem, the sacrifice is going to be similar to what you'll see with like IDOs, ICOs, pre-sales. It's a token distribution event, right? So in the community, we use very specific words to avoid issues, to avoid expectations, and to be very clear about what's happening there. So sometimes those words can be confusing. I'm going to read the disclaimer at the bottom of pulsechain.com because no one ever actually reads the disclaimers. And I actually think in this case, it's very, very important. So I'll explain some of the details in a second, but again, just the sacrifice is the token distribution method, right? It's how we're going to get the tokens out there so that the network launches in a functioning way. And the same thing with PulseX. So I'm gonna read that disclaimer and then we'll dig into a little more. So this is word for word straight off the bottom of PulseChain. You are sacrificing to prove how strong you believe that blockchains are speech and that speech is a protected human right. This is an important political statement. Obviously, in the PulseX, it's about freedom of movement, but same exact principle. You must have no expectations of profit from the works of others. The set of people who have sacrificed to show their commitment to this political statement makes a great set of people to airdrop free things to. These sacrifice points are not meant to have any monetary value. Remember, you're not buying anything. The world is just noticing you are amongst a group of people that sacrifice to make a political statement. Some countries tax their citizens when they receive things of value. PulseChain and all the coins on it are designed to start with no value, which is ideal. Consult your own legal and financial professionals, as nothing written here should be considered professional advice. The only thing we know of set to be airdropped for free to this political group so far is PulseChain, PLS. If we hear about other cool things, we'll let you know. So obviously all that applies to the PulseX as well. So again, there's a reason you want these things to launch at zero. There's a reason that we speak about it being a sacrifice, about not having expectations of profit. One, that's to make sure that you understand that your expectations and what you hope something does is their own. No one's selling you a bill of goods telling you this thing will 10,000x. We talk about the potential. If you think it will do that and you purchase in with those expectations, that's up to you. So again, the sacrifice is just a way to distribute these things. Those are worded very carefully for a reason. There's a reason it's the OA. There's a reason it's a sacrifice. And then I was going to go over the basic mechanics. Anyone have any just general questions on the wording or why it's done that way? Cool, easy enough. So as far as the mechanics, some of these exact parameters will change a little bit, but all the context will be the same. There's basically two main drivers to how you will get points awarded for how you sacrifice. So no matter what asset it is, they take the USD value of that at the time you sacrificed. And then likely most assets will have what's called a TWAP. So if you see TWAP, that's time weighted average price. And because crypto is extremely volatile, a lot of times you'll take a 30-minute window to just basically take away spikes and goofy things that'll go on. So all it really does is just sort of basically smooth out your price. So no matter if it's Hex, Matic, anything on the list, it doesn't matter what's actually sacrificed. You're just going to take that USD value at the time you sacrifice. And then the sacrifice itself also is just a send to an address. All the formula comes around basically what that US dollar means at the time, right? But as far as the sacrifice itself and how you do it, it's a send. If you've ever sent yourself funds from an exchange, if you've ever sent them to another address, a sacrifice is the exact same thing. It just has connotations here through the formula that distributes these points, right? So the time component is called a bonding curve. And a bonding curve is just a mathematical expression for basically adding this value on over a time. So the first 5 days are the flat portion of the curve. So as far as time is concerned, it makes no difference if you sacrifice on day 1 or day 5. All those will be calculated at the same base rate. And that base
Walrus,
rate
quick question on that.
per dollar.
Did you see?
Yep.
Walrus, did
Go
you
ahead.
see Richard's tweet about January 10th? Did you
I did
see
not.
did Richard's tweet about January 10th being the date? Do you want me to real quick?
Sure.
So everyone gets the same 10,000 free PLX per $1 sacrifice, equivalent from now until January 10th, when it's 5% higher rate per a day for 47 days, up to
Perfect.
2.5% volume bonus until the last 5 days, which get only a 1.7 times volume bonus.
Okay, so the
End of tweet.
2.5% is actually going to be 2.5x. Um, he must have mistyped there.
No,
So,
I misread.
nope,
My fault.
no worries. Thanks for chiming in. That makes this more clear. So, so now that flat portion of the bonding curve. So, literally, if you're looking at a graph, it's going to be a flat line from right now until January 10th. So, the only reason to sacrifice at different times here is if you're holding something like Hex and you basically want price exposure between now and then, right? So, day 1 through 10, everyone calm down. If you're sacrificing a stable coin, it does not matter. You can take your time, verify all these things. There's no rush. Anyone holding something like Hex or ETH where there's going to be motion, you have up till January 10th to take your time and pick what you think will be the high value of that. Then after that, there's the bonding curve, and the bonding curve will be as he listed there. Thank you, by the way, that it's 5% more expensive per day. So at days from now until January 10th, it is 10,000 coins per dollar. On January 11th, it'll be $1.05, and then so on and so forth, getting more expensive. So people will get to move in, but again, there's no reason to rush. You have from now till the 10th to get here and get all these things lined out. The other component is the volume bonus, and a lot of people got this confusing, and it's a little confusing until you just get your head wrapped around it. Then it's the same. So the way the volume bonus works is it's a linear line between the points, right? Not the sacrifice addresses. So the way you actually do apply the volume bonus is that you take the largest sacrificer and it goes in order of all the addresses, right? So you line up all the sacrificers by size. You go to the largest sacrificer. Their first point will get that 2.5x. And then there's an equal distance between every point. So his first point will be 2.5. His next point will be 2.4 and 5 nines or something, right? And it'll get smaller and smaller until you get to his last point. So, as an example, in the first sacrifice, Overwatch is the big guy. He had that $29 million sacrifice. So, his points go first. He's the big dog. So, his first point got 2.5x, and then he got all the point curve down to about 2.43, 2.42. So, that means that the second sacrificer, which was C5, that's the God Whale that we all know and talk about. He's a big player in Hex. He put up like 19 million. So if you just line their points up, Overwatch starts at 2.5, goes all the way down to 2.42, and Overwatch's last bonus is where C5's bonuses starts. So as the second sacrificer, he'll start at roughly 2.42, and you go all the way down through his points, and then the next sacrifice starts and it goes all the way down until the last smallest sacrificer's point gets, it'll be 1 point, however many zeros in a one. So sometimes that got confusing as people were like, oh, well, I'm address number, 1,000 out of 50,000, so I should have this really big volume bonus. But the volume bonus is based on the actual volume, not on your order of addresses. The order of addresses just decides whose points go first. I know that one's tricky. Did anyone need that more explained or need it clear? Perfect. So, and then on the last couple of days, I haven't seen the bonding curve. I'd have to play with the math, but the way it worked out on the first sacrifice was that there was actually a dip. So you had days 1 through 5 were flat. Then this bonding curve started, but because that 1.75x, the math was worked out to be where it was actually a better sacrifice for the vast majority of sacrificers to do days 17 through 17 especially, but 17 through 19 than it was days about 13 or 14 through 16. So we'll actually get, now that we have the details, we'll check on some of that math there. Everyone here now, obviously, just get in before January 10th. Again, the only reason to wait would be if you think your asset will outperform that bonding curve, you could wait. But honestly, if that's a game you're willing to play, you probably don't need my advice. That's a very risk heavy approach. And I don't know how high the upside would be. But if you say, for example, say it's January 10th and you think that Hex is going to go up 7% the next day, then it would make sense to wait. You'd have a 2% gain there. But that's a risky proposition. Again, if that's a strategy you're interested in trying, you probably don't need my help. Everyone else, I would recommend to DCA in, take your pick, and move in while that bonding curve is flat, and take the known quantity there rather than trying to play a high risk game there. So that's most of the mechanics there. If that makes sense, I was going to move on and kind of explain. Everyone gets confused about why people say to sacrifice Hex, so I was going to explain that real quick unless anyone has something they want to jump on.
No, please explain.
Sure. So Hex, the reason you see so many people talk about sacrificing Hex is because there's an expectation from social momentum. There's no locking. There's no reason this has to happen. This is the social momentum of what these addresses have done in the past. The OA and the sacrifice address have never sold a Hex on market. The SAC address, people saw swaps and got confused. They converted a lot of other coins into stable coins, but the Hex remained there. So if people buy Hex and then sacrifice it, you get the buy event, and then you don't see the sell event. So it's just a pump on top of the Hex price. So that's sort of the why. Now, why you individually would do one. So to me, there's a couple of different reasons why you would or wouldn't do this. If you are a large holder, then you can sacrifice the swap fee to turn whatever, say you had like 10,000 USDC, for example. The swap fee is not too big a multiplier on that. And it would make sense for you to take that Hex out of the supply if you're a large Hex player. If you're not a large Hex player, so that's kind of got its own mechanics, right? If you have big Hex bags and you're looking at the long-term value of taking these things out, that's great. But for everyone else, swapping to Hex means that you're going to have price exposure between the time you swap. So assuming everyone has a bot already, so you're like, what am I going to sacrifice right now? So say you swap as soon as the AMA is over. Okay, you're going to get in at that price. You're basically going to take price exposure between there and whenever you sacrifice. So if you think Hex is going to go up between now and January 10th, you can make the swap, and then you could take advantage of that price movement. But I said price exposure for a reason. Hex does not have to go up. We saw it do some funny things in the middle of the last sacrifice that people didn't expect. If you sacrifice in that time frame, you could have taken a loss there. Most people were able to ride up that price action early, and they were very happy. So if you have big Hex bags, obviously it makes sense for those guys long term to take Hex out of the market. If you're not a huge Hex holder, but you have a moderate size bag, the swap fee into Hex is probably not going to eat up your bag too much, and you can take advantage of that price exposure if that's something you think is positive. A lot of us have bought before this moment and rode up, been DCAing around this last dip and took advantage of there, and now we've taken that dry powder and have more US dollar value to put into the sacrifice. If you're a small player and you say have less than 1,000, maybe 1,500, don't play any of those games. I would love to have you buy some Hex and pump all our bags, but what I would much prefer is that you don't do a send from an exchange, a swap, and then a send to the sacrifice. And just as an example, let's say the two sends are $40 and the swap's 100. Well, if you had $1,000, like you just ate up 14% of your bag in fees. I don't want you guys to do that. If you're a smaller player, we'll get more explanation on it, but you can sacrifice a non-EVM, which means nothing from Ethereum or BSC or Matic. You can send one of those from a non-EVM chain directly from the exchange and have that credited to the Ethereum address of your choice, which would be your own, obviously. Or again, I can give you guys mine if you want me to take credit for your sacrifice. So you can do that and basically minimize those fees. So if I have $500, I'm not doing any of those games. Don't enrich an ETH miner. I want you to have a bigger Pulse bag or bigger PLX bag in this case. I want you to take full advantage of that. Don't pay ETH miners. you can sacrifice a non-EVM asset directly from whatever exchange makes sense for you and have it credited to your Ethereum wallet and avoid those swaps and transaction fees on Ethereum.
Walrus, do you want to give a couple examples of how somebody might do that? Would it be like a USDC directly from, say, a Coinbase, but have the recipient wallet be a hardware wallet? Do you want to cover that, or is that not part of this?
No, that's because one, you can't do that. USDC is an EVM asset that comes from Ethereum. So if you sent USDC from Coinbase, the sacrifice address, the logic engine that applies the sacrifice doesn't know that you're you and that Coinbase isn't you. You know what your value is on Coinbase because of that UI, that interface, the account you have with them. But to the blockchain, Coinbase just has a wallet that holds these assets. So if you sacrifice from Coinbase's wallet, it is going to pay Coinbase. The reason with non-EVM chains is because if you say sacrifice Bitcoin, I can't send Pulse back to a Bitcoin wallet. So what happens is when you sacrifice from one of these chains, you connect to the PulseX.info. There's a DApp on anything that's not Ethereum or BSC or these things. It will generate you a unique sacrifice address. So that address will then be associated with whatever MetaMask or again, whatever Ethereum address you want to use. And that way you can send it from Coinbase to that address, your address, and that's how it's able to value that. Mm-hmm. What was that? I don't think he was talking to us. So you can do that to credit that way, and that's a way to minimize those fees. You'll actually connect to the DApp, get a unique sacrifice address, tie it to whatever MetaMask you already use, and then you could send, Bitcoin or XLM or any of the other approved, again, non-Ethereum assets. You could have them sent over there, or again to whatever your hardware wallet is, whatever structure you're using on Ethereum. The last sort of main thing that I wanted to touch on, and this is a bit my personal opinion here, is to be careful about using PulseX as a way to immediately swap in to swap into Pulse. Now, you're likely to have a good rate. This could be something that works out very well. I just want to put my 2 cents in on that sort of risk profile there. So everyone knows you can pick which direction you think things will move up and down. But Pulse is going to be volatile because every crypto is volatile, and a launching crypto is very, very volatile, right? So when it comes to PLSX and Pulse, this is 2 cryptos, which is already crazy enough, but it's 2 cryptos that are launching at the same time, and you're going to have a lot of movement there. So why I would caution people from doing that swap immediately is, just as an example, so we have some frame. Let's say that a lot of people make that swap. Let's say that Pulse goes up 20%, PLX takes a little bit of a dip for a moment, and you have this 30, 40% movement away from each other. That 30, 40% between 2 crypto prices, especially launching, that's very minimal. This isn't my opinion, but you have people who think that, some of these things might dump to below sacrifice prices. You have moon boys that think this thing's going up 20x on day one. Now, chances are those guys are both wrong. But that just gives you an idea of the distribution, the range of outcomes there, right? So if you take the range of outcomes of 2 very volatile things, I just don't want someone to make a swap and then an hour, 2 hours later, if they had waited, they'd be up 30, 40, 50, 60, 2x on their coins when they could have just held something that we know will be valuable. But if you make a swap, you're locking in that initial price there. So I think that the PulseX will be very valuable. I think that Pulse will be very valuable. I think that PHEX will be very valuable. So again, it's one of those things that if you're an experienced guy, if you understand how these ratios work, of course, make your own decisions, pull the trigger, lock and load. You're a trader mindset. That's fine. For those of us that essentially came to a room that said, hey, we need some newbie help. We don't want to make mistakes. In my opinion, these are all profitable things in the long run. I don't want to play the game of trying to make a smart trade when I could just hold things that I think have very, very strong long-term value. I'll just hold them. Maybe I make a swap at a later time. Again, there's all these things that can happen in the future. But as far as that first couple of days, first couple of hours, especially before we have a USD price that'll help a lot of us value these assets, I'm not a trader. I can't time the market. I'm not going to play that game. I think that PLX number goes up eventually. That's enough for me. With Pulse, I think number goes up eventually. that's enough for me. And the same thing for PHEX. So again, we can dig into some game theory there, and people can put in their 2 cents. RH said that there would be a time frame where you could do that at a good rate, and I would always lean toward taking RH's advice even over my own. I'm just putting out my opinion here, and everyone can add it to their worldview. RH said it would be a great one. I would take his opinion valued 2, 3, 4 times more than mine. But I do want to just put out that caution, just so, again, I say this all the time. We're a community that prides ourselves on being safe and secure and understanding the risk in what we're doing. And this is sort of my opinion on why that motion could be tricky.
Well,
Yeah, just on that point. Sorry, I was just going to say, just on that point, Walrus. Just an example. If you had $1,000 of, you sacrificed $1,000 of PLSX, and you went to swap that, and if that's dropped 50% and PulseX has done a double, you're really only swapping $250 worth. So just be careful on what you do. Just wait until things settle. PulseX will come back up. Pulse might settle back down. You'll be getting a better rate. Don't, just because Pulse is racing and you want to swap, just watch the ratios, because if it just 50% drop from one place and a 2x, Pulse has gone up 100%, you're literally only swapping $250 worth of your initial investment into Pulse. So just be careful.
The PulseX Telegram group is going effing crazy. There's all kinds of conflicting info in there. Some guys are saying Richard's Twitter was hacked, that it's a fake one. Other guys saying it's a real announcement. Nobody knows what's going on. It's off the chain in there.
The only way to really prove it is live stream, right? Like, that's a possibility.
And this is, and again, for everyone here, especially again, like I said, this is tailored around newer users. If you're an advanced cat, make your own calls. Holler at me privately. We can have that discussion. But there's a good example, right? So now we're not sure. We have till January 10th. There's no reason to take even a 1% risk on your principal of your sacrifice. Like, again, that's my whole point with all this conviction is take time. Again, with that flat part of the bonding curve, you're going to get in. Everything's going to be fine. We can all be bullish on these projects long term. I want the minimum amount of risk when I already have very, very high confidence in the ceiling of all these things. Would anybody be here if Pulse did 500, 1,000, 1,500, 5,000x? We'd all be really happy and excited. I don't think anyone would be shocked and say that's something that's impossible. I think the same for PLX, and I think the same for PHEX. So if I realistically think that those types of gains are possible, why would I take a 1, 2, 3, 4% chance on risking that principal? Just take your time. It's fine. We have till January 10th. Look these things over. Decide if you want to DCA in. If you're holding Hex or again any of these other coins, these things are volatile assets. Decide if you think you want price exposure for a length of time, or if you just think, hey, nope, I'm not really going to play that game. You can DCA, or you can just in the sacrifice once we get 100% clarity. Wait till you hear it from RH. Double check in here. I try to be helpful, but again, no one here has ever shook my hand. So vet everything I say. I give my opinions. We try to be helpful, but the whole point of these things, and really crypto in general, is that you take the full responsibility, right? So in Legacy, there's a phone line someone can pick up and call. They're going to give you a heads up when they see weird activity on your debit card. Someone there is mowing the lawn in front of the bank. They're paying rent. They're doing all these things. Well, we gave all that up, right? We didn't want 10%. We wanted 10,000x possible returns. Well, if you want 10,000x, you took away all that support in the middle there. There's no one to answer the phone. No one's double checking. No one's going to reverse transactions. There's not a place to go in there and drink free coffee and talk to the tellers. All that's gone because you wanted 10,000x. So we all should make sure that we take that responsibility seriously, right? We're the ones protecting our funds. We're the ones buying hardware wallets. We're the ones doing the research on all these projects. If you don't want to do any of this stuff, fine. Call the guy up at JP Morgan. Tell him you'll pay his trader fee. Tell him to give him $10,000, and maybe you'll get 8% that year. That's fine. That's a very safe way of going about it. People have been doing that for years. But you want 10,000x, you want to be a part of these crazy type gains that we see in crypto. Those things aren't free. It takes time to understand what's going on, participating in things like this room here, and making sure your security is tight. So do not risk your principal. scammers and hackers are not going to come participate long-term in the ecosystem. So you're taking away my money as well. I don't want you guys to lose money. I need you to participate in the network so that I can make money. So we literally are all in a similar boat. Be careful with your funds. Don't send it to some hacker. Stick around, get the gains, come pump all our bags.
Hey, Walrus, it looks like Richard pinned the address in the PulseX pinned messages. I was just letting you know.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, I kind of like the shock there. Again, I'm in no rush, so I just like that we kind of got a scary moment, if for nothing else, to remind people that this is crypto. No one's going to undo these transactions, and to take your time and confirm this everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait at least a day to see how this little pump goes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Perfect. So guys, like I said, we went over the basics of the sacrifice. Again, it's designed to avoid designed to avoid the Howey test expectations, lots of taxation problems in different jurisdictions. It's a way of distributing the tokens to allow these things to start effectively. We kind of went basics off of that. Anyone have any vocabulary things we want to check on? Basic questions like this was designed for basic questions, so no one feel silly or awkward about asking something basic. Just let me know what you guys got.
Hey, just want to let you know, Steph with Staker app has confirmed that you can forward with the any hex, USDC, whatever, from his app, and that that'll help the Staker guys out.
Yeah, perfect. Steph and Firebun are incredible. Can't say enough about what those guys do for the community, and the app itself is really cool.
Hey, Walrus, a quick question. Can you once more elaborate on what was the benefit, if at all, we are sacrificing using a hex coin? Did I hear you saying that if you're going to sacrifice hex coin, the coin really does not get sacrificed and you still have the hex back?
Sure. So the reason to sacrifice hex doesn't actually have to do with the sacrificing. It has to do with the fact that the number can go up between the time that you purchase it and the time you sacrifice, right? So if you, even today, you purchase it at, what are we at, 32 cents? Everyone else can see the charts. If before the end of January 10th, if you want that exposure to the price and we see it go to 34 or 38, or we get a little moon, it goes to 40, right? Then you'd be better off with the US dollar value at that point, right? But as far as once you sacrifice, it doesn't matter. $10,000 of USDC is the same as $10,000 of hex. The idea is that holding hex now gives you that price exposure to hex between now and the time you sacrifice. As far as the wallet itself, our expectation, which again, I use that word there specifically again, because it's our expectation, not from them. RH and all these people have always said we're not going to profit on their work, but the OA and the sacrifice address have never sold the hex. So if you're a large hex holder, it would make sense that they continue the same behaviors they have, and that they likely won't sell the hex. So you're taking that hex off the market.
Got it. So either you sacrifice hex or ETH, both have the same benefit. That's like a price exposure, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Is there a list of tokens that are allowed to be sacrificed anywhere that I can find, or does it not matter, just ERCs?
There is an accepted list. You can look up the ones on pulsechain.info. It'll have a list there. I'm assuming that I haven't looked since this conversation. Now that we know that it's live, PulseX or pulsex.info should have the approved list. The majority of sort of the mainstream coins, the stable coins, Hex, Ethereum, I believe SHIB, Doge, BTC, XLM, even Theta, all of those were allowed to be sacrificed. We should see that information if it's live. It should be on one of those sites officially.
Have you heard whether the donation option like there was with the Sens last time?
No, I don't think they were able to get a 501c on board in time. That stuff takes time. You really also have to trust that the organization is going to do proper accounting. RH had a long-standing relationship with those guys, but I'm sure everyone here can imagine what would happen if $27 million got misaccounted for. A lot of people would be very unhappy about that. So it's not just about the longevity and sort of trust in what they're going to do with the funds, but also in that they're going to handle that in a very specific and orderly way. So they weren't able to get that up in time.
Walrus, this is my first call or first exposure towards this pulse chain. So maybe a noob question. In the conversation you mentioned two different coins. One is PLS and one is PLX, I believe. So can you give a one-liner what the difference between both the coins that's being launched?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is meant for those questions. That's why we haven't got into crazy game theory stuff, to make sure that people can flush this stuff out. This is about the community being safe and maximizing their bags. We Galaxy brains can have all their discussions all we want. So this is a perfect place for that. So Pulse Chain is the name of the blockchain itself, right? So Ethereum is the name of the blockchain, right? The native token, which is the token you use to either delegate to the validators, which we can touch on that later, or to pay transactions on Pulse Chain, is Pulse, PLS. That's the native token. So that's the same as ETH on the Ethereum side.
Let me throw something in. Richard did post a personalized video about the sacrifice to his Twitter 4 minutes ago as well, so it appears confirmed. It is live.
Perfect. Very cool. So now that we have the address on Twitter, we have RH saying it on video, and we have it pinned in the Telegram, we should feel comfortable moving forward on the sacrifice now. So everyone, don't trust me or Connor. Go verify those things for yourself. But if you see all of those things in that places, you should feel comfortable moving forward.
Wallace, just so you know, PulseX.com is still not updated. So if you're trying to do something right now, you're basically doing it without the DApp.
Correct. Richard Hart, he addressed that in his video, saying, yes, the website's not ready yet. It will be soon, but might as well open it now and confirm across multiple channels. The address is posted for sacrifice of freedom of a movement and gathering. There you go. So the fact that he used that terminology as well, the freedom of movement and assembly, that's specifically for PLSX. So it's not like a repost of something for Pulse Chain, because that's for freedom of speech.
Very cool. So PulseX being different than the native token, PulseX is the token that is called a DAO. DAO is decentralized autonomous organization. So what that means is that the PulseX works as a voting token about parameters inside of the DEX, and a DEX is a decentralized exchange. So we're comfortable. Most people here have used like Uniswap or PancakeSwap or SushiSwap. So all those are DEXs. That's where we swap all these tokens. It's the smart contracts that hold all these liquidity pools and these ratios, all these things that we'll be discussing there. And again, everyone feel free to interrupt when something doesn't make sense there. So PulseX is how we vote to change certain parameters inside of that. But for most people, where the value of the PulseX token will come is from the buy and burn function, which is really cool. If you hear certain people complaining about it, saying that it's not as powerful, one, you could just say that they're correct and I'm incorrect. The other is that I think most of the time you see that mechanic on a coin, it's because that coin is also inflationary, right? So Ethereum has a burn, but Ethereum is still overall inflationary because more ETH gets minted than is burned, right? Cake has a similar function, but Cake is still inflationary because it has all this minting process inside of yield farms and some kind of jazzy stuff there. Where this is very different with PulseX is that PulseX cannot be minted, which means number goes up every single time this buy and burn occurs. So that buy and burn, this is probably a long answer on the differences here, but we're talking about PulseX, so this is probably valuable. So there's a transaction fee for actually performing a swap on PulseX, right? Same way that we pay a fee on Uniswap. Some of us actually even pay the convenience factor to just use that swap, inside of MetaMask. And if you actually pay attention there, sometimes when you actually hit the swap, it has that little fox guy comes up. It says fetching quotes, and it'll say, you'll see it look through there and say checking Uniswap and these other pools. That's an aggregator. It's looking at different pools for the price, but essentially that swap function is just using these DEXs, and you pay a fee for that. If you hold PLXX, what happens is you can literally hold it in your wallet. It does not have to be staked. It doesn't have to be in the protocol in any way. It can just be sitting in your wallet. because what will happen is a portion of that fee actually buys PulseX up and then burns it. So it's not just deflationary, it's deflationary with constant buy pressure. As anyone swaps on top of PulseX, there's at least a small purchase of the PulseX token itself right out of the liquidity pools and then burned. When you think about something that can't be minted, that is constantly bought up and then burned, that is very powerful price action. So again, just that's my opinion. I think that buy and burn is a little misunderstood because it's typically used as a way to control inflation. But in a coin that does not have inflationary mechanics, that is really strong price action. And you actually don't have to hold it you don't have to stake it. You don't have to hold in the protocol. It's designed, the yield in a way is just designed to give it price action. So if you hold it in your wallet, this buy and burn occurs whether you do anything. You don't have to touch anything. You can basically just know that number goes up because that buy and burn is happening.
Thanks for the explanation, Walrus. I have a couple of questions from that. Is the gas in the Pulse chain paid with PLS? And the second question is that post-sacrifice, whenever the chain launches and whenever people get airdrop, would it be PLS or PLX or both?
So transaction fees on Pulse chain are paid in Pulse, but there's a swap fee that you're paying to essentially the protocol and the liquidity providers for the service of the swap, but there's still a small gas fee there that you pay, right? So when you see that like total fee, if you use the swap function in MetaMask, you're seeing the fee for the swap, you're seeing the small fee that MetaMask charges you for convenience, and then the gas is all factored into one price. So that swap fee you see is a combination of these things. So the same thing would happen on Pulse chain. You'll likely just see your fee. That fee will include the transaction cost to actually make the swap, and then the fees for inside of the pool there. And then as far as what gets dropped, it depends on what you did. So if you held ETH, you're going to get your one-to-one copy of Pulse. If you sacrificed for Pulse chain, you'll receive Pulse token. If you sacrifice for the PulseX, you're going to get the PulseX token.
So will we have 3 different sacrifice address for the 3 different airdrops?
So you can essentially say the drop for Pulse or the Pulse chain coin, that's done. The rate is so high, it's crazy. There's no need to discuss it. It's done for. No one needs to do that. The only sacrifice that's going on is for PulseX, right? So if you sacrifice to the address, all the things that we're talking about here, what RH has put on his Twitter, you're going to go through the mechanics we discussed, and the only thing that you're likely to receive is that PulseX token.
Okay, thanks, Walrus. That helps.
What's going to be the best way for us to get some of the Pulse token to use for those of us that didn't know about Pulse chain in the beginning when you guys sacrificed for that one?
Yeah. Okay. So that would be the only way that sacrificing makes sense to the original one is you could send a small sacrifice to get a few Pulse. You can hold ETH. If you hold a few $100s of Ethereum, that should be enough to get you a copy for a Pulse, enough to do a transaction to swap things into some Pulse, make sure you have some transaction fees. And then also, if you have friends in the space, Pulse is very, very inexpensive. And the transaction fees are so cheap that likely, if you know anyone here in the space, they'll throw you a couple of Pulse, which would be, a few tenths of a cent to be enough, or a few pennies so that you can actually make a transaction.
Okay, thanks. And holding ETH on ETH chain is only going to get us 1 Pulse per ETH. Is that correct?
Correct. That's a very inefficient way overall to use the funds if you're just looking at the mechanic, but you can hold enough there to make sure that you have enough for your first transaction, so that you can swap some of your hacks or whatever you're holding into Pulse, and once you have a handful of Pulse, you'll have enough for several transactions.
Okay, that's perfect. And do we know, I know that for the test net, the snapshot was already taken so you could see your testnet tokens. Has the snapshot already been taken, or do we know if that's happened for the actual real Pulse chain?
Sure. So it has not. Just so everyone knows, the mainnet going live, snapshot, and fork are all variations of the same event, right? So if you sort of ask a dev, they'll tell you that there's a block height. And what they mean is that these are blockchains, right? So at a certain block, that's the activity, that's the system state that is going to be basically the first block for pulse, right? And that's where you see the fork. They each have that block and they go in their separate directions. So everything we do now is essentially happening on pulse chain because it's going to be copied, right? So even though it doesn't really exist, we're taking all this system state data with us. So the snapshot, fork, and mainnet going live are this event where that block is now the last block of ETH at that point is the first block of pulse, and now they go their separate ways. So that would be the event where whatever's in your wallet is now what you're going to have on pulse, and that event has not happened yet. That will still be in the future, likely that 1 to 2 months range that Arch is discussing.
Okay, so if I've got ETH, most likely I should transfer it into some other ERC20 to make the most of it.
In a vacuum, right? There's always tax reasons and different things that can be going on if you have enough pulse for a few transactions. But if you're just saying, hey, should I hold $5,000 worth of ETH or $5,000 worth of whatever ERC20? Obviously, we're big hex players, but whatever ERC20 you feel comfortable with on the next side, the ERC20 is likely to provide you more value in the future because you're not getting that crazy dilution value there.
Thank you.
Evening,
yeah,
Walrus.
Absolutely. Hey, brother.
Hi, mate. First, thanks for all your input, buddy. All the time, as you've been putting in. Just a quick one. What's the situation on the volume bonus, Walrus? Or like we had in Pulse, or is there anything like that?
Yep. It seems like the mechanics are the same on that. The same volume bonus, that 2.5 at the tippy top to 1. I don't know the date range yet. So they released a few of those details as we were actually on the call here. So naturally we have impeccable timing. So hopefully a lot of people got a lot of value out of this before they scrambled to the sacrifice and had problems. Do you know the way the volume bonus worked? Or are you just curious if there's a copy, or do you need an explanation on it?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's the bigger the sacrifice, the higher the volume bonus, but I'm not entirely sure how the mechanism works and the amounts to reach the different volume bonus levels,
Sure. So we'll go over it real quick then, too, just because I'm sure it's a little tricky. So
thanks.
You can just think of it that way, that the more I sacrifice, the more of a bonus I get. But the way that it's calculated is that there's a maximum of that 2.5. So the way it goes is it's the largest sacrificer's points go first, and then it goes in order of the size of sacrifice, right? So it goes in order of the sacrifice, and then it actually goes through their points, though. So the largest sacrificer's first point is going to be 2.5. That'll be his bonus for that first point. And then it's going to go down evenly between all his points until you get to his last point, right? So for the first pulse chain, that was Overwatch. Overwatch had a $29 million sacrifice. So his first point got 2.5, and then he took the volume bonus all the way down to about 2.42. So where the largest sacrificer's bonus ended is where the next sacrificer's bonus started. So Overwatch ate the curve down to about 2.42, and then the next guy was C5, the God Whale. C5 started at 2.42, and then he ate it up down to 2.40, some variation in there. And then the next guy starts, so we go all the way down. So it is in order of address, but just because your address number 1,000 doesn't give you X bonus. It depends on the actual volume of the people ahead of you.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Why would Overwatch go from 2.5 to 2.4? Why wouldn't his whole 29 million be at 2.5 or whatever? If he put it all in at one time.
So he doesn't actually even have to put it in at one time because the volume bonus is over. So in Pulse Chain, it was over the first 16 days. I don't know how many days this one is. I haven't seen, but it'll be the first X amount of days, right? So even though he's the largest sacrificer, that doesn't mean his whole bag gets 2.5. It just means his points go first. So his first point gets 2.5, but the volume bonus isn't per address, it's per point. So he just basically, each one of his points get a different bonus, and it goes all the way down until his last point. And then wherever that bonus is, that's where the next sacrificer starts. And it keeps going down through all the points.
Gosh, I just wish that he would go live right now on his YouTube, man. Fuck. Now I'm like, oh, are these deep fakes?
I swear, right?
Yeah,
No,
dude.
this is great, man. It's great.
Yeah,
I
we're coming
mean,
up on
everybody's
about
here
about an hour.
live together. It's beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for doing this
So
too.
absolutely,
Walrus,
man.
sorry,
Yeah.
can I just backtrack a bit? You mentioned about holding ETH to have enough gas, but we know that 1 ETH is going to be 1 pulse. Can we just have a couple of $100 of ETH? Is that enough, or do we need to have more?
So it should be. I don't have a solid answer there, but if you look at the transaction cost on testnet, they're basically nothing, like thousands and ten
Yeah, like
thousands of a pulse.
3 zeros.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So a few $100s should be enough for one. And again, a pulse is very inexpensive. If you know anyone else in Pulse Chain, they'll likely just give you a pulse so that you can do a transaction. Or again, you can sacrifice a very small amount because you're getting there's no reason to sacrifice for your bag per se, but you could sacrifice a couple of bucks just to make sure you had some pulse so that you could transact. You can do that. But you really don't have to hold much ETH to have enough for a single transaction.
Okay. And then just going back to sacrificing coins that are not ERC20. So if you've got that, like I've got some Bitcoin, but obviously it's not supported in MetaMask. Is it possible? Because Richard mentioned sacrificing Bitcoin, but logistically, how would you do that?
Sure. So this is good too, again. So if you cannot sacrifice from an exchange unless it is a non-EVM asset, so nothing from Ethereum, nothing from BSC, none of those Ethereum-based chains. So again, so her question is, how would you do Bitcoin? So one, you could do this from an exchange. Just be very careful. But the way you do it from your wallet is the dApp will connect when you can connect to the PulseX.info dApp. For Bitcoin, it will give you a unique sacrifice address. So if I decided that I was going to sacrifice Bitcoin, me and you would send to 2 different addresses, okay? Because your sacrifice address is going to be how they tally up your value. So you'll connect to the dApp, tell it Bitcoin, it's going to give you an address there, and that's just your address. So all the Bitcoin that gets sent there is going to give you that US dollar value, and you're going to tie it to whatever Ethereum address you want to add in there. So you'll connect to the dApp, get your sacrifice address for Bitcoin, only Bitcoin, obviously, and any Bitcoin sent to that address is going to credit to the MetaMask you tie it to.
So during that process, there will be an option for me to put the MetaMask address in.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
And it's pretty self-explanatory. Once you're actually working through the dApp, the options there are very simple. But again, everyone's sending value. We haven't all done this. So again, we have till January 10th. So you can go use your address, connect to the dApp. Once the site's up, wait till you have all the site information. You can connect, look it over. It should be very basic. If you have any problems, again, we have till the 10th. Just take some time, come back in here. If we don't have something going on, or if you can't get your answer in the main Telegram room, come in here, shoot me a DM, whatever we need to do. We'll make sure that you feel comfortable and get it sent in safely.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I got here a little bit late. I don't know if I missed something in your when talking to her. It sounded like you said we can't send anything from an Ethereum wallet on MetaMask. Is that what you said?
You can't send any EVM asset, so BSC, Ethereum, anything like that, from an exchange. If you send those from an exchange wallet, you are not going to get credited.
Okay, from an exchange wallet. That's okay. That's okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Walrus, just to clarify, you can send it from an exchange, from Coinbase, you can send that to your MetaMask and then sacrifice from your MetaMask if you want to use that particular coin. Yeah.
Yep.
Walrus, the sacrifice start, right?
One more time, Mo.
The sacrifice for PulseX, is it start or not yet?
It has started, but don't trust me. Go look at RH's Twitter, see the sacrifice address, watch the video, and then go to the PulseX Telegram room and look at the pinned message. So it has, but don't trust me with your funds. Go look at those with yourself.
Okay.
Yeah,
what about?
We always want to encourage the good hygiene. We want to make sure that we trust, but we always confirm.
Okay, what about if the sacrifice, there is any, is it the same as the balls before? Like it will be better to sacrifice right away, or does not matter within 5 days, or I can sacrifice? Is the same options basically I have or not?
We have that flat part of the curve, that first 5 days, we have from now until January 10th. So there's no reason
Okay.
to rush. Again, we'll go check all these things, verify, look at the data
Okay.
for yourself, but we have until the 10th to feel comfortable, to wait for the high price on our asset but the sacrifice details will be the same. So yeah, go verify those things, and anytime between now and
Exactly.
January 10th, you'll be good.
So if I sacrifice now or before 10 days, it's the same. That's what you are
Correct.
saying. Okay, perfect. That's what I want, because I want to make sure it is right, because everybody's just saying something, but I mean, even Richard Hart, he Twitter something, but I'm not sure. Everybody says they go scam or it's not scam, so I get confused. That's why I want to wait to confirm it. That's what you said exactly. That's right. Really good point.
Perfect.
Well,
$0.5.
point, sacrificing from the wallet. Can we do a direct sacrifice from Trezor itself? Because it's got the function in there. So if you're sending USDC, you just get the Ethereum address and send it there.
Correct. The sacrifice there is just a send, so you have no problem there. The only thing is that that address, right? So even though it's on our Trezor in our head, that Trezor is just attached to a public address, right? So
yeah,
that's where your PulseX is going to go to that address. What you may have to do is use that Trezor as a front end for a MetaMask or a wallet that has custom RPCs, so that you can actually see it once it's on Pulse Chain. But you can absolutely do the sacrifice the way you have now, and everything will work flawlessly. You'll just have to connect that seed up to a MetaMask so that you can actually interact with the coins on Pulse Chain once they're live.
Okay. But just sacrificing, I can put the address into the Trezor for now and send it directly. It's not a problem.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, lovely. Thanks.
Can we sacrifice from Binance Smart Chain? And if we can, would it be the same address what has been put by Richard Hart?
Yes, you can. You just need to make sure that the asset is approved on that approved list there. But absolutely, you can send from BSC.
Okay, thank you. And it'll be the same ERC20 address, correct?
Correct. The ERC20, ETH, and Binance is all one chain because those are all EVM. So that address is the same, right? So if I pull up, say, the address that I sacrificed from, that I sacrificed from an Ethereum address, but all I have to do is change the network settings, and it'll be on Pulse, or I change the network settings and I'm on Polygon or BSC. So it's that same address, just at different network locations. So it would be the same there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Walrus. For someone like myself who hasn't sacrificed before and is somewhat unclear on the actual purpose of sacrificing or the benefits of it, or just basically the whole process of it, I'm just curious as to what it actually entails, because I'm a little unclear about it. I'm just wondering if you can elucidate that and basically confirm whether or not basically either you're just sacrificing something on good faith that you believe in the project, or are you going to be, I guess, like compensated on the other side somehow?
Sure. So I'll give you a quick synopsis, but this is going to be recorded, and we went over a lot of this in much better detail. Once we have it recorded, we will probably put a little, intro, outro, and we'll put it on the YouTube. We'll post that here. So I would just listen to the discussion. It's been really good. We went over a lot of the points. But essentially the sacrifice is the way that the tokens are going to get distributed. So that value will go through all these mechanics we've discussed, give you your point total, and that's going to be your allocation of the token. And then that token will be distributed to everyone's wallets once Pulse Chain is live. So the sacrifice is a very specific mechanic. We use that language for a reason. Again, if you watch the video on this, I actually read the disclaimer from Pulse Chain, and we kind of discuss why that language is that way. But it's similar in action to like an ICO, an IDO, a pre-sale. It's a way that we're using this for distribution.
Okay.
Well, it's again another question is when we do the sacrifice, do we have? Can we pay by Pulse since even that is not really released yet, or we have to pay by Ethereum coins?
You obviously, again, Pulse Chain's not live, so we can't use any of our, some of our point structure on that. What you'll have to do is you don't necessarily have to sacrifice from Ethereum. There'll be other chains and assets. So you'll be able to sacrifice Bitcoin or XLM from Binance Smart Chain, all these options. Anything that's on that accepted token list, you'll be able to sacrifice from all those different blockchains.
Oh no,
But
what I'm saying basically, I have it in MetaMask. I have already convert USDT to Ethereum, so it's ready from my MetaMask to sacrifice. So when I do that, I have to pay fuel by Ethereum, right?
Correct. There's no way to get around that. If you're sending it from an Ethereum chain, you're going to have to pay the send fee to send it to the SAC address.
So there is another way basically to do it better, basically when you say that, because when I was talking to somebody, they told me either USDD or any basically chain, it's ERC20. So now do you think I got hit like in that regarding the fuel, or it does not really matter now?
Now that you have the assets there, there's nothing really we can do, right? Because you're going to have to send it somewhere. So if you do anything else, you're just going to have to send it somewhere and then send it to the sacrifice. So now that you have that value on Ethereum, you're going to have to pay a transaction fee somewhere. So you might as well not try to move anything, take any risks, do anything else. Just send it to the SAC address now.
I see. Because I do have it in Kraken. I have an account with Kraken. I converted to Ethereum. So I'm going to basically send it from Kraken to my MetaMask. So after that, I will sacrifice with that amount. So that's okay, right?
Correct. So this is up to you. You can sacrifice from Kraken, but you can't send Ethereum. You'd have to send Bitcoin or XLM or one of the other assets, and that process is a little trickier.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
the same what you explained before about the Bitcoin. I understand that, but in this case, basically, since I have it in Ethereum, it's the safer way. Basically, even though I pay a little bit more, the safer way to send it to my MetaMask wallet and just sacrifice from there and pay the fuel.
Correct.
Yeah, I see. But if like for some reason next time, if I want to do another after tomorrow, I'm waiting for another fund, basically send it to Kraken. So now, what the best way to do it in this case? If I have the fund basically as a US dollars basically in Kraken, is what the best way to sacrifice not this one? This one here, it's done. Basically, I'm gonna do it the same way as you said. But let's say if I send another fund basically to a Kraken an account, and after that, what should I convert it to? Should I convert it to USDT and send it to my MetaMask, and after that sacrifice with the USDT, or just the same story as you said?
So you'll have two options here, and you can use like XLM, which is very cheap, or Bitcoin, and you can just use those assets. And then what you're going to do is connect to the DApp, and once we have these up, we'll probably do a quick video so you can see this clear, and we'll make sure that this is simple. So you can use those and send those directly from Kraken, and you're just going to there'll be a line there where you say like the address you want credited, and you're going to want to use the same address that you sacrifice that Ethereum from, so that you want to make sure you use the same one. That way your volume bonus stacks together, because you'll get credit for both those values together. That bonus is not so outrageous that all I'm trying to get at is if you get there and you feel uncomfortable, you're gonna do fine either way. And I would just say that if the fees aren't so huge that 2 cents are going to change it. So just if you feel uncomfortable with that, or it just doesn't feel intuitive, you can still go through Ethereum. But that other way would save you some fees. But just make sure that you're safe either way. And if you need some help, just slow down. Like I said, we have till the 10th. We'll try to make sure that everybody gets it there comfortably.
Perfect. Do you have a video for that, you said, or no?
as soon
Or
as
even
the sites are up so that it's clean, we'll do a quick walkthrough so that we can actually
perfect,
point to these things, and we'll make
perfect.
it as just, yeah, as easy as it can be.
You mean the PulseX, right? .com, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Yeah,
perfect.
that
Okay,
site should be up, and once we actually have the DApp, then we can do a short video and actually say, okay, you know,
perfect,
this button, and
perfect.
point it out.
No, perfect. I appreciate that, Waltz. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Hi, is it correct that there is already sacrifice for about 7 million until now in the address?
I've been live here, so I've just been walking everyone through it. I haven't got a chance to check myself. But I'm sure if you look in the PulseX.com room, I'm sure that they're just blowing up talking about all this stuff here. So I'm sure those guys are popping the ether scan and reading it all now.
Is it because that's why? Because the hex is going up right now, 34 and up. So is it because of that, or is just like it happened, it's up?
So
Sacrifice 6 million hex already.
you gotta love it, guys.
7 million.
So the sacrifice itself doesn't cause price action. It's just a send. Well, what it is that now that everybody sees that it's open, people, and they know that they have till the 10th, everyone wants to buy the hex together, ride the price up, and take the USD value.
I see. That's maybe why it's going up, because within like not even 15 minutes, it just jumped by 3 cents.
Yep. And again, guys, like I said, there'll be all kinds of game theory and big discussion. And we'll probably do another one of these here, maybe tomorrow or day after, for some more nitty gritty game theory. But this is just about making sure that everybody understands what we're doing and the basics, so that we don't lose funds and so that people can participate safely.
If you guys
Hi,
if you
I
guys
have a
did not do
question.
the pulse chain sacrifice, I would wait until the website is up and running, and Walrus and the guys, J Money, Lank, they come out with a video on how to do it. There's no rush on this whatsoever. Like, wait for the website to go live.
100%.
It's easy to go to the DApp, connect your MetaMask. You're not sending to some blind address. Just wait. It's so much easier.
Yep.
I have a question. Can I send from the same address like twice, or it's only one time?
No, you'd actually want to send from the same address, or as I was discussing with Mo or any of these guys, if you're going to send something like Bitcoin or any of these, you want to make sure that you tie it all to the same address. That way you get the volume bonus there. So if you have a small amount in a few different wallets, then you probably don't want to eat the swap fees. But if you basically but if you can, you want to send everything from one wallet so that you get the biggest volume bonus.
Okay, thank you. What also, like, if I send just a little bit of what I have like today, and maybe days later I get some more, is it okay to still send from the same address, or it's limited?
No, of course. You would definitely want to send from that same address, and you can sacrifice as many times as you like.
Okay, thank you so much. And can we send hex?
Absolutely.
But the
To the
bonus
same
will be
address,
the team mode.
Ethereum?
Hold tight, real quick. Go one more time, Miss
If
Justine.
if I have hex, right? What's the address to send it to? Because this one we got, I saw the Ethereum one.
Correct. That's the same address. That's what you would send the hex to.
It doesn't matter, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But now again, so again, go
Hmm.
ahead, Drills.
Yeah, I got a question. I'm trying to sacrifice some
Thank you.
Ethereum. Can we sacrifice Ethereum to the contract address Richard tweeted?
Okay, so remember that's the sacrifice address. A contract address is a little different. So we just want to be very careful on our wording there. That is the public address for the sacrifice, and yes, you can send to it.
So we can send Ethereum?
Correct.
All right. And also, are we meant to plug in that address on like Uniswap exchange, or do we just send it from the Ethereum network?
I don't know how you would plug that in Uniswap, but no, this is just a send. So if you're sending from Ethereum, all you do is literally send to that address. You actually don't have to connect to the DApp or do any of those things. So right now, if you want to send Ethereum there, you just literally send it from your wallet.
Okay. And is it like sending it to like person A to B like that?
Correct. It is the sending to the sacrifice wallet for that credit is no different than if I send it to you directly. Just sending it to the sacrifice address will make it go through all this functionality where we credit to points. But as far as the blockchain, it's just a send.
Okay. I'm having a lot of things about this PulseX. Apparently, that when we sacrifice our money to the address, we may not get the PulseX token. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's worded that way for a very specific reason. If you want to, this section here is going to be recorded. In the very beginning, I go over why that wording is the way it is, and I actually read the disclaimer from PulseChain.com. So we're going to upload this as a video. And again, I would recommend that you just wait on your sacrifice, especially if you still have these questions. Listen to this overview. We talked for about an hour here, but especially at the beginning, we'll educate you on why those wordings are the way they are, and probably make you feel a little safer making that transaction.
So is this like
RH did say that if you can't wait for PulseX.com to come up, you can go to PulseChain.com, read the exact same wording, just substitute PulseX for PulseChain if people are impatient about that. But
exactly,
the best thing is to wait.
Yep, I 1,000% agree. If you have questions, I would just wait.
Well, you said something for the lady. I just want to confirm it. It does not really matter how many you sacrifice. Like, let's say I want to sacrifice $10,000, example. I want to sacrifice with the 3 stages. The bonus, it will be the same as one-time sacrifice, right? So it will be adding up all the bonuses for all the 3 transactions, the same as one transaction for the sacrifice. Is it right or not?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure because you mentioned.
Mo, is your native language Arabic?
Yes.
Okay, so my fiance is Iraqi. So if you have problems with some of the translations, if you can DM me questions in Arabic, and I'll have her help me translate. And then probably here in a couple of days, I'll do a voice chat just for the Arabic speakers to make sure that they feel comfortable, and I'll have her in here helping translate. So just in case you have problems with the English, just DM me in Arabic, and I'll have it written back to you correctly. And we'll probably do a little voice chat just to make sure everyone's on board.
I appreciate Walrus. No, I understand everything, but you mentioned basically the bonus, it will be more, so that's why I want to clarify that with you. Now, everything will be okay, but if I have any issue whatsoever, I will DM you.
Hey, Walrus, I have another question.
Thank you.
Of course, brother. Shukran.
So this sacrifice is like a life or death situation. You don't know if you get the tokens or not, right? So we just wait for Richard Hart's announcements, right?
Correct. That's why, and I try to tell everyone there's no rush.
So is this like a charity cause? So we don't know if we'll get like a win or not?
So again, I'd recommend you listen to this here. That wording is used for a very, very specific reason. It's set up for that very specifically. So again, I don't want to give you the cliff notes. I would encourage you to make sure you actually understand what you're participating in, and to read the beginning of that and to go to PulseChain.com. I actually read it in the beginning if you want to just listen, but on PulseChain.com you can read through and read the disclaimer there that'll clarify these things.
Okay, so this is like a charity, right? So we're just donating money?
No. You should go to howtopulse.com and learn about what the pulse sacrifice was, because this essentially is the same thing. You're going to sacrifice without any expectation about getting anything back. But in the future, a generous person might decide to airdrop tokens to you worth 0 that might at some point have value. So just go to pulsechain.com, read what happened with the Pulse Chain sacrifice, substitute the word PulseX or Pulse Chain, and you'll have a better understanding of what is happening. But again, just wait for PulseX.com to come out and read everything before you do anything.
Okay, thank you.
Walrus, may I ask you a question?
Of course, please do.
If my hex is on my ledger, I don't have necessarily to log in MetaMask. I can send it directly from Ledger Live to the sacrifice address.
Correct.
Okay, so a ledger is no exchange. It's your own wallet, your words, your wallet, your address.
Correct. Of course. Yes, all that's spot on.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys. Like I said, we went a little over here. Hopefully that was helpful. We tried to go into all the specifics. Again, no one rush. I'm going to be in PulseX quite a bit. A lot of the OGs will be in here helping out in the room. PulseX should have a lot of the answers, but again, it can be very loud, very chaotic. This room here is a little smaller, so please feel free to lean on the utilities here. But we'll do plenty in PulseX. There's no rush. Again, everyone take your time. Make sure your stuff's safe. We'll probably put out a small video. And again, if it's not something too personal, please ask it here in the main channels. You guys can DM me if you need it. But again, I try to be as helpful as I can, but guys, don't trust me like that, right? Always do these things in the open where people can double check things. Do them in the public channels. Again, even though I'm known here in the community, that should give you some trust. But again, you guys haven't shook my hand. Be safe with